Welcome back to the University of Ozarks Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, here at the new student hall, and I'm joined today with Dr. Daniel Fudge. How you doing, Daniel?
It's great to be here, and I'm doing great.
Good. Yeah. No, you were about to say it's great to have me.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Which I'm
sorry.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize. You're the first person to be excited to have me hosting.
Yeah, great to have you talk to me.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, it feels great. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what classes you teach?
Absolutely. So, this is my fourth year teaching at the University of the Ozarks. I teach political science, predominantly American politics. So, I teach everything kind of from state and local government to Congress to the presidency. I teach research methods as well. So I teach a variety of things just really related to American politics.
Okay. What are there like specific class names that you have that you teach?
Yeah. So one of them I would say is that I'm really proud of and I love is the politics and film. So we watch films, we watch political films, and then we discuss and dissect, right? Like what's happening.
Yeah.
And then also like really what is the commentary behind it, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's something that's rooted or based off of something that really happened or, right, it's something that's entirely made up to sort of romanticize or criticize, right, what's happening in government. So I do that one. But yeah, like, I teach a class, like I said, the American presidency. I'm teaching that this semester, and we go from the very beginning all the way to where we are now.
So would a movie that you guys watch be like The Manchurian Candidate?
I've not featured that one
in
my class yet, but yeah, that definitely would count. The original version, I think I like better than the newer one, just because I think it has some of that old classical directorial stylings, and I like that. One film we watch in it is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which that came out in the 30s. It's black and white.
Yeah.
There's so much context behind it, and there's political drama, right? But it's great because I show this film to the students. It's the first time they've ever seen it. And we watched several other films as the semester goes, and I asked them towards the end, I was like, what was your favorite film? And they're like, the first one.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, because it's just a classic. It's fantastic. Frank Capra directed it. So
and
it's really
still
good.
so applicable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things about when we think about representation, we think about, the way Congress works, right? Or doesn't work, right? We think about all these sort of things, again, right? That we can put into context even from 1930 to 2025. Right?
Man, I would love that class.
It's a cool class.
So what is something about teaching here that has surprised you pleasantly?
I think it's, and I've taught at other institutions before. So I've taught at big, large-scale universities. I've taught at, larger community college, regional publics. But I think here, there's such a close-knit feel. Right. That I know all of my students. I make it a point within the first 2 weeks of class to know their face, know their name, and know something about them. Right. And I think that's so important because it's kind of like, right, as we think about bringing it back to political science and politics, right, know who your constituents are. Right. And again, know who your people are. And when you do that, you build trust. And, again, in politics and political science courses, right? It's about the diverse exchange of ideas and how do we understand each other, right? How do we understand where we're coming from? And I think that is something that I do notice with our students is that there is a desire, right, from different backgrounds and all that to be in a close-knit community together. And so that's something that's pleasantly surprised me and that I really enjoy about teaching here.
What are some specific stories that stand out that kind of bolster that idea of community that's built here?
I think one thing is that we have students from all over the country. We have students really from all over the world. And when you get all of them in a class together, I think you just see a common understanding, right? Like where there's, and I'm saying this kind of broadly, but when I've had other classes that, regardless of where someone's from or what have you, right? Like they're all engaging in the same thing. Yeah. And that brings that sense of commonality and understanding. And so I can see that in certain classes that I've had. I do legislative simulations as it relates to like Congress and state and local government. And I'll have students that are international students that are coming in with an entirely different perspective, right, of public policy, of okay, this is an issue in the United States, right? Maybe it's not in their home country, right? But then you get that understanding from a domestic student who gets to then hear about the perspective of somebody else from another country, right? And it brings sort of this idea of the global citizen, right, to light. And so I think that that's really cool. And that's something that's really pleasantly surprised me.
That is really cool.
Here. Yeah.
So then with Ozarks emphasizing giving students freedom while providing strong support, how have you seen that play out in your classroom or your interactions with students?
Yeah, I think it's all about communication. And I think that when you have a small campus, it's so valuable to know who are the people who can help guide you on your path, right? And again, there's a multiple number of pathways that one can go in college, and there's always the kind of stigma, right, that well, college life is different than the real world, right? True, but it's also that it's preparing you for what's next, right? And so again, from the faculty member to support staff to folks in academic success, right, to our staff that is in the registrar's office, right, and financial aid, right, everybody it's a team effort. And I think that that's really cool. And again, we're so small, you can start to learn who these people are, what they're about, what they do, right, and I think it builds a community from that. And so I think that that's really cool and what's really special.
Man, I like that a lot. So are there experiences here that you think give students a unique edge without being like different for the sake of being different?
I do, and I think it's because, right, when we think about a residential, small campus, right, a residential small campus, that you're learning to live, right, in a small space without feeling overwhelmed, right? But the idea of different for the sake of feeling different, right, is no one's forcing you, right, into like, you have to be in this organization in order for you to thrive. It's not that at all, right? It's like those books. I do this in my research methods class because I have them think about a research topic and then they get to study that. It's like choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you remember those books, right? The choose your own adventure things.
I still have a lot of them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, they're fantastic, right? Like turn to page 47. Okay, great. Now turn back to page 24. Right? Like whatever that looks like is your path's going to change and you can learn to be different. And I think there's value in that, right? Without having to feel like you were, boxed in to something or having a particular label or whatever, right? There's real unique aspect to that.
Yeah. What stands out about the students here at University of Ozarks?
I think the first thing I would say, the first word that popped in my mind was curious. Students are curious, right? And especially in my field, my discipline, I teach the American National Government class, which is 1,000 level course. So I'll get bulk of them are freshman students, and I think it was last year, I had a student say that they're really hoping that they can feel more confident in understanding government, understanding politics, so that then they can be an informed voter, right? They know what to look for, they know what to think about, right? What issues matter to their communities. And ever since I thought about that idea of confidence, right, it's because so many students are curious. And I see that across disciplines. They're curious. They want to learn more. I'll have students come up. We'll have mentioned something, right, in class, and they'll come up and they'll be like, "Can you tell me more about that?" And it's and it builds on itself. The learning builds on itself. And so when you're curious, that's important. I think.
Now, same question, but about your colleagues. What stands out about working with the people that you work with here at the University of Ozarks?
I think supportive. I think the first word comes to my head is supportive. That I can go to one of my colleagues, I can have them as a sounding board. I can visit with them, about maybe something I'm not confident in, maybe teaching in, or even like there's something. How do I approach this, right? And being a sounding board is so important because it creates collegiality. It develops trust, right? In the same way that somebody would do it for me, I would do it for them, right? And so I think that's a really cool aspect of it is just having that support network and knowing, right, that we are educating the next generation. And so we're all feeling that right together, and that creates this togetherness with us.
It definitely sounds like the size plays a huge role in how community is built here at the University of the Ozarks.
No question. Yeah. I mean, and granted, not to say or take anything away from bigger institutions, which they're valuable, right? And some students thrive in those environments. But, some students may not be ready to make that jump, or they may not feel comfortable with that jump. And, coming to a place like this, it allows them to be able to step into a place where they can learn more about themselves. They can learn more about their future, right? In a place where they're going to feel supported and they're going to feel good about their choice.
I like that. So outside of the class, what kinds of projects, events, or activities do you notice that are shaping students' experiences here?
I think one thing is, I know that we take a lot of trips, like weekend trips and things like that around the state, or maybe even outside of the state, to get them exposure to the region. And I think that that's really, really cool. Again, we're surrounded by the great outdoors in the Ozarks. It's beautiful. There's all kinds of opportunities to just get outside. One of my favorite singers of Turnpike Troubadours, if you're familiar with the band, they asked him, they said, well, what do you do, in your spare time? And the first thing he says is, have you ever been outside? He says that to the interviewer in a situation just like this. You ever been outside? And the value that we have of where we're located, right? It really makes a difference. So I think seeing students go out, getting outside of the campus environment, they know that there's more of the world out there, and that makes a huge difference for them, of just being able to take a step out and be able to embrace life outside of the university environment.
I miss outside sometimes.
Yeah, same.
So how do you see your students' experiences here preparing them for life after graduation beyond just getting their first job?
I think one of the things, it kind of goes back to something I said earlier, is understanding the diverse exchange of ideas, whether it's, political ideas from, conservative or liberal, right? Or other ideas about what's going on in a different part of the world.
Yeah.
As we think about this idea of citizenship, we have to understand that not everybody's going to agree with what we think, right? Not everyone's going to see the world as we do. And there's no cookie cutter way of everyone's going to think like that. No, right? And that's the real world.
Yeah.
And so I think it allows us in a smaller space to engage with each other in a respectful way, to then carry that onto the real world, right? Because there's going to be adversity. There's going to be times where you're going to feel uncomfortable. And there's value in sometimes feeling uncomfortable, right? You have to learn how to deal with that. You have to learn how to understand, and then go out and that's going to be the real world, right?
Yeah.
But I see that almost as a strength, not as a weakness, right? And there's value. There's such value in that. So I think there's that outside of, getting your first job, and which is very important, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the other big thing is, right, of just understanding that there's a broader context to everything, right? There's always a broader context that, some policy or something affects somebody, right? Well, yeah, it may affect one person, but it's going to affect a broader amount of people, right? And having that knowledge that so many things are interconnected, I think our college does a really nice job of doing that.
That's really cool. So if you were describing the student experience at Ozarks in 30 seconds, what would you highlight?
That's a great question. I think I would say you have the ability to learn who you are in this big world, in a small place, right? But that doesn't take anything away from what you can experience on the outside world, right?
Yeah.
That you have the ability to engage in the broader world in a smaller space. And there are a number of organizations students can be involved in, right? They have a close-knit, relationship with their peers, where they're living, like right here, in their classes, that they can build that. So it's almost like you're learning about the big world around you in
Yeah.
a small place. And while that can seem like the nice, warm, comfortable cocoon,
Yeah.
you're being shaped, right, to go on out into it, right? And I think that there's beauty in that.
Yeah. I like that answer. That's
Yeah.
a good answer.
Cool.
On the weekends, where can people most likely find you spending your time
Oh.
if you don't have any work to catch up on?
Sure. I am a huge sports fan.
Okay.
So I love baseball. We're right in the middle of the playoffs, right? So we got the American League Championship Series, the National League Championship Series. So that's going on. So I'm watching baseball.
Okay.
On the weekends, I'm watching football.
Okay.
And in fact, my wife has now taken to where she has created a bingo card of like things that I like, motions or things that I do during a game, because apparently I do the same literal things every weekend.
Yeah.
Like, so example, I will stand up, like I'm a coach with a clipboard or something, and
Okay.
I'm watching the game. Another one is, and she actually got a bingo the other day because I threw an invisible flag as if like it's a penalty, right?
Yeah.
So I'm watching a lot of football
Yeah.
around the fall, and so I'm watching a lot of sports. But I would say that's the real. If you could find me,
Yeah.
it's probably some sort of a sporting event.
Yeah.
Of some
Either
sort.
there physically or on the couch watching.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
This has been a super fun conversation. So,
Absolutely.
thanks for joining me.
Really enjoyed it. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nate.
Yeah,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.